Hello, I'm going to talk to you about Kabbalah. Kabbalah and how we can understand the basic principles of Kabbalah in a geometrical way. As you know, the previous time I explained how, in my opinion, everything what we see and everything what we experience is caused by a single membrane. A membrane like a foil like this. A membrane that has a spherical form. Now, the membrane itself is very dynamic. This is my point of view. And I call it a singularity. It's a unity that is dynamic, and you cannot cut it, you cannot break it, because a singularity cannot destroy itself. Now, in mathematical way, you can do it. You can do everything. You can make intersections and say, oh, I cut this and glue it back to each other. In physics, you will see that by using such an approach, people need to go and try to find the glue, and they call it the gluon. But there is a very, very simple way to explain everything what we see, and based on a membrane that is not breakable. Now, if you see a sphere, you can tear it, and not in parts, but to make a long part of it. It's like a single string, let's say. Now, you have here the idea. So if I take a sphere and I put it in different directions, I get a tube. Now, the tube is made by the membrane. Now here you see that you have two peaks, two ends of this tube. Now, imagine that this is a very dynamic system. Now this dynamic system one tube can push away the first layer of this part of the tube, and so it pushes away and it's covered by this part, and then it comes in the second one, and then you have a second layer around it. So finally you have three layers. I show it now in another way. So the basic idea is that we have two tubes, and when one penetrates the other, you push away this layer, push away a second layer, and then here we have for the first time a multi-layered structure. This is a structure where the dynamic tube, what I showed first, was dynamic, had no structure. Here you have now coupled structures. So now here you have entangled membranes in one part. Now, this idea is very important. Now, if you see this like this, you will see that it is like three circles around each other. This is in Kabbalah what they call the concentric circles. Now, in Kabbalah, when we translate this to Kabbalistic approaches, you see these are two tubes. They combine with each other, where one is passive and the other one penetrates the passive one. And see what we have. Now we have a zone here, what I showed before, in three dimensions, where we have three layers. Three tubes who are covering each other. Two are covering the other one. Now, in Kabbalah, the approach is that there is an absolute, a substance that is absolute, and of course you cannot destroy it. Now, we see that with very simple penetration, which I call the pelastration, I get here structure. For the first time I have a holon, I call this a holon, with structure inside, but also with internal dynamics inside. You can see it is like a part of the energy of the totality is stored here for a while in a system. Now, and if I cut it like this, so you have the three concentric circles, like the Bahir says there are. Now, if we go further, and let's say we make from this a very large system, we see here that this holon expands, but between the layers we can create, by the same principle of pilastration, we can create locally also different types of pilastrations. And amazingly, when you see those different types of pilastrations, there are 22 possible combinations. For example, here, when we call this the an, like an Soph and an Soph R, we see here that on these layers that it's possible to create geometrical structures who are again little sub-batteries or sub-storage systems of the bigger energy. So now we see that, in example, on the membrane layers here of an, we can create a number of combinations on the surface. But we can also create from these membrane peaks, we can create combinations of, for example, an and an Soph, where one is in this case a passive one, the other one is an active one, and here vice versa. But here we see that on every layer we can do this. And so we can create density. More density means that finally at a certain level you get so much layers that they have a weight and they have an internal stress. They are compactified together, they are entangled together, so they start to have a weight, and the weight we can measure. So energy, what you see here is total energy, but that is locally manifested in matter after a certain time. And in my opinion, that is what is Kabbalah about. And even the same image, you can see it as this is the Brahman, and you see here, this is a Brahma. Now, interesting in this concept is, here I show one way to do it. You can have, however, also a self-pilastration, like you see here. This also always happens at the outside, but on the inside you can also have those two possibilities. So in totally you can have in a membrane, spheric membrane, you can two combinations inside, type of combinations inside, and two at the outside. And always in each of these four worlds you can have those 22 combinations. Now, it doesn't stop here. There is more. So like you see the system as above, so below, we use the same concept, the same pilastration system, a coupling system, a universal coupling system. Now, in each of these, there are a number of combinations. 22 combinations are possible, of higher density. And this is what happens in one of those universes, you can say, or frames of reference, like Einstein would call them. Kabbalah is a very interesting system where the essentials are the 22 paths. Now you have also the 10 Sephirot, and this is another story, but it is also related to layers that are put over each other. And when you go and look into the Kabbalah literature, you will find out that the basic idea is that everything is like layers on top of each other, like you see in a tree. And this is how they come to the idea of the tree of life. Okay, thank you.